I'm sitting here on mute saying good morning, everyone. Get myself prepped. I have no excuse for that because I could have done this all in the background. Could have unmuted myself. But good morning. Glad to have you guys here with us. We got a fun day today. We will be doing this all on one continuous stream. We have confirmed that and double checked. So if you don't get the humor behind that, it is just because we had some issues with that the last several days. But I am positive we are going to be on one stream for this today. What will end up happening is we'll have a small gap. So we'll have an intermission on this stream. I'll make it very clear that there's going to be an intermission, and then we will tune back in with you guys. Let's see who's saying good morning. Well, Megan said good morning to me so far. Appreciate it. We also got Talisha saying good morning. Appreciate you guys. It's always tough for me because I did get this new TV to kind of use for the chat, but I don't know if you guys realize this. When I stare at you, I'm staring at a teleprompter, so I got to glance down to get to the chat and stuff like that. But good to see everyone. Welcome back. We have two things that we're doing today. Again, all on the same stream. It will be basically back to back. There's going to be a small intermission. So the first thing that we are doing is something called Supplement Squad. Now, this is one of our pre-recorded sessions. The next session after this on the same stream is going to be live, and that is a case study with Bria Gad. So who is Supplement Squad for? Who would want to stay for this? This is definitely for anyone that is a practitioner that's not considering the FDN course, but would like to learn more about the supplement side of things. And it's certainly for people who are looking into the FDN course and do want to learn more about the supplement side of things. So we don't act like we're the best at everything. I think that's foolish. Different places and certifications have their strengths, of course. That's why they're able to operate and are in business. But just like I would say, XYZ program is probably one of the best in coaching or whatever it might be. I would confidently say that FDN is probably some of the best trained supplement practitioners out there. Now, what I mean by that, what does best trained actually mean? This doesn't mean that we're the best at pushing them or giving them to a bunch of people and making them take them for life. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is we are the best at coming up with these advanced protocols and really understanding how to utilize specific supplements for specific cases. Another thing that you need to know about FDN, these people have asked this throughout the week with labs and supplements. There we go. Now I see the hellos. Good morning, everyone. Glad to see you guys. I'll answer, I think there's one question there. I'll answer that in a moment. One thing that you need to know about us at FDN, we are not lab loyal. We're not supplement loyal. We are principle loyal. So I'll say that again real quick. We are not lab loyal. We're not supplement loyal, but we are principle loyal. What does that mean? It means that FDN is a way of thinking. FDN is a set of principles. There's only one woo-woo thing that we'll ever ask of you at FDN. FDN is very technical, very science-based, but there's one woo-woo thing that you're going to have to believe in and get on board with. And maybe you resonate with this. You can let me know in the chat if you don't. Please let me know if you do, though, as well, just so it's not the people who don't. One thing that we adamantly believe is that this body that we are in has an innate healing ability. The body that we are given has an innate healing ability. Now, I'm of faith. I believe God gave us that. You don't have to resonate with that. You could believe in something else. Regardless, we could come to the same belief, hopefully, that this body that we are in, that we are renting, maybe, if you will, while we're on this earth, does have an innate healing ability. And I would not even argue that that's particularly woo-woo. Why? Because you've already activated that unique healing ability or innate healing ability, throughout your life. How do I know this? Well, I know this because if you've been alive for more than probably a year, I'm guessing you've gotten a paper cut or some type of scab or whatever. Has that ever happened to you? Well, I don't know about you. I didn't need to go to the doctor for the paper cut. I didn't need to take a medication. I did not need to look at my finger when it had that paper cut and say, you need to heal for me right now. That's not how it worked. What worked is I got the paper cut. All of a sudden, I go to bed that night. I wake up the next day, and that looks a little better than the day before. Then I go to bed again. I wake up the following day. Wow, that barely is even there anymore. Then I go to bed again. I wake up that third day, and lo and behold, there's either just a scab that doesn't bother me, or I would have forgotten at that point that the paper cut was even there. So you tell me, if that's not an innate healing ability, what is it? What is it? If you've broken a bone in your life and you've had to have a cast on it, maybe you broke your arm as a kid and people were signing it for you in school. I don't know if you realize this, but there's not magical chemicals that are released from that cast that fix your arm. That's not how it works. In fact, the only reason that we have casts is because we know that the body has an innate healing ability and we're going to put it back into place. Because the body could screw up in the sense of if your arm's all crooked and you didn't have it in the right place, that innate healing ability could mean that it's going to heal in a direction that does not make sense, and you got an arm that's all crooked for the rest of your life. But the cast that we invented and that we use in modern medicine is literally because we are directing that innate healing ability. We already know that it's going to happen. So we say, all right, let's make sure it happens perfectly. Let's make sure that the arm heals in the direction that it was supposed to heal so that I don't walk around with a 90-degree forearm for the rest of my life. It's pretty darn cool when you think about it. So that's the only woo-woo thing we'll ever ask you to believe here. Everything else is extremely science-based and principle-based. So that's the only thing we're loyal to. The supplements and the labs, they come and go, man. So with Supplement Squad, I want you to think about this today because it is going to be more advanced than you'd probably expect. I hope it is, actually. This is stuff that even our trainees are learning. This is stuff that they're getting support with. These are actually, what's even crazier is Supplement Squad is not even required to go through the curriculum. This is an optional call that you can attend or watch the recording of while you're going through FDN so that you can keep your training at a higher level. And again, I do believe wholeheartedly that people that are not interested in the FDN course but are in this holistic space will still benefit from this. So once we get through the Supplement Squad, I'll hop back on here. We will have, again, a little bit of an intermission. We'll be on this same stream. And I'm sorry that I keep repeating myself. It's just that new people keep coming on. I'm watching the numbers go up. So I want to make sure that they know that. We'll be on this same stream. I'll have something up that'll be like a little intermission thing. And then at 1 o'clock Eastern, we will be live with Bria Gad going over a case study. And Bria is not someone who is an individual who gets to speak that often for our community, not because we don't want her. It's just because we haven't gotten to talk to her that much over the last couple of years. I've only gotten to interact with her a few times here and there, so I'm super excited to get to show her off to you guys. So let's see what we got here really quick before we get started. I'll show some of the stuff on stream. Okay. Hey, Dina, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. And you're a trainee, so it's cool that the trainees show up for this because you guys could be accessing this anyway, but I'm glad that you guys are live. Holly said, I've seen bones regrow where the broken bone was ejected in accident. I have a series of x-ray images showing it rematerialize over time. Isn't that amazing? So I say it almost tongue-in-cheek that it's the only woo-woo thing we'll ask you guys to believe in at FDN because it's really not. Like, we already know that the body can regenerate. What happens if I fast to the epithelial cell layer in my gut? What happens if I fast? It starts healing. It's amazing. They're some of the fastest regenerating cells in the body. Really cool. Morning, if anyone's contemplating on doing an FDN, do it. You guys are great. Love the trainees and grads that hop on. I wish I could give you guys something for this, but you are awesome. I'm almost finished, and it's the best, most meaningful thing. Wish someone had told me this sooner. We would love to get you on the graduate roundtable once you're done. All right, let's see. I believe that wholeheartedly, says someone. Awesome. And then, great. What type of teleprompter do I use and love? That is an excellent question. Let me look here. So it's called Glide Gear. And the reason I didn't know offhand is because, have I shown you guys yet? Can you be honest with me in the chat? How many people truly in like the beginning of this, and maybe you didn't, that's fine, but be honest, please, if you did. How many of you thought that this background is real? And then I promise we'll get started here. I'll take 30 seconds for this because there's a delay. Put a 1 if you thought this was real. Put a 2 if you knew that my background was fake. And the reason that I'm asking that is because when we moved to Austin, I had this guy, he actually lives in Austin, but his program teaches people how to convert a bedroom or a room that's like 8 by 10 into a fully digital studio. So this place is insane. If you could actually see it, I posted it on 2. No. Oh, I got a 1. Nice. So I'm tricking somebody. That's great. But it's not a bad virtual background, right? So yes, it is virtual. And then I can go with the snap of my fingers like this into another FDN background. When my wife is working, she works for Dr. Josh Axe. We snap our fingers again, and now we're at the Health Institute. So we are able to play with this stuff and change it around a little bit. All right, good. I have some 1s. I appreciate your honesty. Some 2s, no worries. So that's why we have this all set up. I didn't know what the heck I bought. I just knew that I wanted this set up. So it is a Glide Gear. I think I'd probably change now, knowing what I know, to the newer teleprompter that just came out. NEWW, 2 W's, ER, newer, and that'll have that. So, all right, thanks guys for humoring me. I appreciate you. No worries about knowing that it was fake. Oh, good. It looks real, but you knew it was real because I wasn't talking about it. Awesome. All right, let's get to Supplement Squad. I am stalling a little bit because I didn't want us to have a super long intermission. So we will get into this right now. I already have the video up for you guys. Again, I'll be here in the background. If you have any questions as we go along, try not to ask me super technical ones. I am the podcast and event host. These are the people that I go to have advanced questions answered for me as well. I hope that you guys enjoy it, and I will see you in a little bit. Remember, we're going to be on this exact same stream for Bria Gad's case study at 1 o'clock Eastern. Here we go, folks. Just letting you know it's working. They were still getting started. It's on a Zoom, so it's not that you can't hear anything. Kurt starts in just a moment here. Let me try to fast forward it for you guys.
Piece those clues together and make recommendations on that. So today we are going into immune.
All right, guys, they wanted to make this as tricky for me as possible. So just work with me here while it's loading. Sorry, I'm just talking because then I'll get a bunch of things in the chat saying the sound's not working or something's off. I don't know why they didn't cut this part, actually. There we go. All right, enjoy.
Hey, everybody. Hi, Christina. Hi, Jayun.
Hi, how are you?
Hi,
I'm
Kurt.
doing-
Hi, Christina.
Hi, Cheyenne.
Right, just give me 1 second to get everyone entered. Okay, I think we have everyone entered. All right, welcome everybody to the March Supplement Squad. Can't believe we're already in March, and we're right on the cusp of changing time, just a few days away. So, all right, welcome everybody. My name is Kurt. I am a mentor with the FDN program, as many of you already know. I am also joined with the rest of the squad today, which is Jayun and Christina, both fantastic mentors and supplement gurus. So, as many of you know, we are starting over, and last month we started back in the age of hidden, where we're going back to the hormones, but last month we did it a little bit different than the first go around, where we were actually talking more about what lab markers we're looking at and how us as mentors and practitioners kind of piece those clues together and make recommendations on that. So today we are going into immune. So we're going to talk about the immune supplements and markers on the foundational labs that are immune related. Let's see. All right, can everyone see my screen? Wonderful. All right, for those of you who are joining for the first time, what we try to do is the first half hour or so, we will discuss some of the recommendations, the lab markers, things like that pertain to immune. Christina and Jayun will also be monitoring the chat. So if you want to drop any questions in there, if they are questions that a lot of you probably have, Christina or Jayun will kind of announce that to the rest of the class. And then toward the end of the call today, we'll have an open Q&A where everybody can raise their hands and ask questions and things like that. So, all right. So first we're going to go into the immune, and we want to talk today about some of the markers that we're going to be looking at on the foundational labs. And I think one of the most obvious ones is going to be secretory IgA. And the interesting thing about secretory IgA, if you've attended Hot Topics or you've heard one of Elizabeth's analogies, is we think of the secretory IgA as one of those bar bouncers, the one that's checking everyone's ID before they're coming in, making sure they're the appropriate age to come in. But what happens is if you see that secretory IgA marker on the more elevated side, can start to happen is the immune system is kind of in an overdrive, right? There's it's making rational decisions on who's the good guy, who's the bad guy that's coming in. So I want ask either Christina or Jayun, because I need to let more participants in. They keep popping up, so that's why I sound a little distracted. If one of you don't mind chiming in on, because we're looking at Secretory IgA on two different labs. We're looking at it on the SHP, we're looking at it on the GI map. So if one of you don't mind chiming in and explaining what that key difference is, and also why those markers won't always be telling the same story on those two labs, where you might see one high and one low on the other. All right, whoever wants to take over that question.
Christina, do you want to start?
Sure. The biggest difference, I guess, when we're looking at it on the SHP is we're kind of looking at an upper GI response, so an active response happening in the body, starting in our salivary glands. So you're going to see sort of that immune marker, respiratory, salivary, and it means that we have actively working on something. So even though it's the same in your GI system, right, you're actively working on something that's activated the immune system. It is something you've processed in the GI. So your body's actively processed, working on maybe a pathological, maybe parasites, maybe food intolerances, right, that you kind of process through your system, versus the SHP active response, meaning that you've got something happening actively in your body. It's kind of the really basic way to explain the difference between the two.
Yeah, thanks for that, Christina. So the point of all of that is also to, sorry, people keep popping up when I'm sharing. I can't see the chat and I can't see the participants joining. So all right, so kudos to people who can do Zoom calls all by themselves.
Right, and try to watch everything.
Yeah, Christina, I'm going to make you a co-host. That
Okay.
way you can admit people under the participant tab if they start coming in. Thank you. Now I won't sound as distracted, hopefully. There's plenty of other things to distract me. All right. So, you know, the big takeaway from that is you're not always going to see that marker the same on both of those labs, on the SHP, on the GI map. You could see one that's high, you could see one that's low, and sometimes you will see them telling the same story. Maybe they both will be high, maybe they both will be low. I just don't want you to, you know, keep that idea that they're always going to be the telling the exact same story. But one important thing that I think is worth noting about the secretory IgA and looking at that from that immune perspective is we're looking at one part of the immune system. We're looking at that initial response, that initial screening of the screening component of the immune system. So if we're keeping to that bar bouncer analogy, right? And we are you're driving by that bar and you see that there's a lot of bar bouncers outside. You could say, hey, there might be a Super Bowl party going on inside, right? They must be really packed today. They must be slammed. And you walk inside to realize the bar is empty, right? Or if you see that there's not a lot of bar bouncers that's outside that's checking the ID, and you can assume, okay, that bar must be empty today, it must be on the quiet side, and then you go in and the Super Bowl party is happening, right? So what my point is of saying that is we can use that marker as a very valuable tool at seeing how the immune is functioning, how the immune system is functioning and what kind of burden. But we also need to know that it's one component of the immune system, and there are instances where we don't want to completely overstimulate the immune system just because you see it on the low side, and you don't want to suppress the immune system all the time just because you're seeing secretory IgA on the high side, if that makes sense. So an example of that is we have the Echinacea, right, which is a very powerful ingredient for immune support, especially in times of exposure to pathogens or something like that. And I want to ask in a second, Jayun and Christina's their take on this as well. But echinacea is one of those that is going to do a great job at stimulating the immune system. And it sometimes is one of those situations where if you call on the immune system too much, it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. And I hear this a lot in the functional health world where you take something like echinacea, there are a lot of immune response that's going to come from it. But if you keep doing it time and time again, eventually the immune system might not be responding as robustly as it would have once before, especially if it wasn't over called on continuous times. So I like to use echinacea or products containing echinacea in a shorter amount of time, especially around 2 weeks of an increment. I like to think of it kind of like you would an antibiotic, right? 7 or 10 days you're taking it, and then you're taking some time off from taking it again. But we also want to make sure that we are calling on the immune system to, do its thing to fight off pathogens, which is why echinacea is great for those situations where if you feel like you're coming down with something or you're going into crowded areas where there's going to be a lot of germs and contamination. But Jayun and Christine, I want to ask a question to either of you or both of you, actually. When would you, in your practice with your clients, feel, based off the markers that we're looking at on the foundational labs, when would you use something like echinacea or an echinacea containing product with your client? What are you looking for in those situations to feel echinacea is an appropriate time and ingredient to use?
I totally agree. Echinacea, I would not recommend it like for long-term use, and we want to be kind of more cautious use echinacea because it's an immune stimulator. And so I mean basically from the FDN perspective of whatever markers in the lab actually doesn't lead me to make a decision, recommend a product containing echinacea. I mean, it's like for my personal use, I have a echinacea or echinacea containing product. Use that as I put it aside just whenever, when I need to travel or whenever there's like a really bad flu season, a lot of people get sick around. I use that as like a short-term support, and just exactly as Kurt mentioned before. And also, if I know somebody already have like immune imbalance, which means not necessarily hypo immunity, is like an imbalance. They have this allergy, they have this asthma, or they have a lot of sensitivity going on, and I will be really cautious with using the echinacea. And also, if someone with autoimmune, or they may have or we suspect that someone has an autoimmune ongoing, and I will definitely not use the echinacea in that case. And I also want to add one thing, just Kurt mentioned before, on when you see the secreted IgA on the saliva and the GI map, probably tell different story. And Christina mentioned and explained that this secreted IgA in saliva and in the stool test, of course, they tell us a different story. They are at a different location. And another thing I also want to point out is on the GI map, the secreted IgA, and I think Elizabeth also explained that before, you're going to take like several steps for the secreted IgA to show up in the stool test, show up on the GI map report. So what I'm saying is the positive on the GI map is absolutely a positive. A negative, not always, because it depends on how you collect the sample, right? I mean, you only grab like a small chunk from the stool, and that may not have the secreted IgA possibly. So in that case, I probably would correlate with other things on the GI map to confirm if this is low secreted IgA on the GI map really tells us a compromised gut immunity. So I will look at if there's if the both commensal bacteria, both phylum are very low, and then it's possible the secreted IgA is telling us the true story, because we know you need to have a strong commensal bacteria to stimulate the secreted IgA production. So if I see very low on the GMF, then it's possibly the secreted IgA, low secreted IgA on the GMS is telling us the true story. But on the other side, you see a lot of infection going on. Yeah, you have H. pylori, you have a candida, you have a lot of optimistic bacteria going on. So in that case, low secreted IgA probably not always true, or say you also possibly like you have this chronic infection going on for a long time, it just burn out the immune system. So there's just need to make more correlation to really decide what this secreted IgA on the GM map tells us. But back to the question, echinacea, I agree with everything you said, Kurt.
Wonderful. Thanks for that insight as well. Christina, did you have anything you wanted to add to that, or did we cover it?
Yeah, I think that's pretty covered.
Thanks. So one thing that I do want to talk about, though, we're talking about the echinacea on here, but I wanted to bring it back to talking about the ingredients for the products that are on the 90-day sheet. But the reason I wanted to bring up echinacea is because it's often that go-to, you're going to find it and formulated into the products. You're going to have, I've seen it in lozenges. I've seen it in, pretty much every immune formula. But what I wanted to point out was the ingredients that we have in the daily immune that we have on the 90-day sheet for the pure encapsulations. It has components that affect more of immune modulation. And what we mean by that is it's going to, when we say where it's modulating something, it's increasing or decreasing, basically encouraging that homeostasis of the immune system. Or, we talk about modulation with SIgA on the Mega IgG 2000. We talk about modulation for cortisol with the phosphatidylserine. Basically, it's moving it where it needs to be. The body needs more of it. The body needs less of it. It's trying to create that homeostasis. So the daily immune has a lot of immune modulators in there. We have astragalus in here. We have arabinogalactan, which you may also see as larch arabinogalactan. And both of those are powerful immune modulators as well, but they're doing it in a couple different ways. Now, and it's to my understanding, and Jayun or Christina chime in and correct me if I'm wrong, but large arabinogalactan is operating more of that prebiotic fiber that's going to be helping more of that gut immune system. We have 70% of the immune system in the gut. Arabinogalactan is working more as a prebiotic fiber, helping to create a healthier terrain and a healthier environment for that 70% of the immune system to do its job better. And astragalus is more of a immune modulating, more from head to toe immune modulating. So astragalus is going to be a fine option for if somebody has an autoimmune disease, right? And like Jayun was talking about, if somebody comes to me and they have Raynaud's, they have Hashimoto's, they have autoimmune flare-ups or something like that, I don't want to add fuel to the fire by adding in something like echinacea with them. I would want to be with more calmer ingredients like arabinogalactan or astragalus. Lemon balm is also effective for helping with the immune system by taking a burden for viral components. And it does have, and it's been used for centuries for the antiviral component with it as well. And quercetin in here by helping to modulate more of that histamine response that can come with the immune reaction. Because remember, histamine is that chemical part of the immune system. So, calling out a couple of those ingredients, I'm pointing it out because this product isn't really one that you would want to be afraid of. My opinion, I want to get Christina and Jayun's idea on that too. I personally wouldn't be afraid of using this product on somebody that has a known autoimmune disease because it's affecting or the impact is more from that modulating of the immune system rather than directly stimulating it and adding fuel to the fire. Jayun or Christina, do you have any comments on that?
I would just say there's always a difference when you're using a blended supplement versus if somebody was taking just echinacea straight. right? I would definitely want to have that differentiation. You've got a nice blend here that's kind of coming to support the immune system, stimulate the immune system in a few different ways versus kind of a straight shot with a singular herb, basically.
And Christina, you brought up a valid point, and it's something that we have talked a lot about now since we've been on these supplement squad calls is formulas versus these standalone ingredients. You know, we're taking pretty much most of the ingredients, formulas, most of the products that are on the 90-day supplement sheet are formulas that do contain a number of ingredients. And how much of a raw ingredient can you fit into a capsule, right? In this case, 2 capsules. So even if it is something where like Echinacea was included into the formula, how much of it is in there is really going to be a thing too. On a fun fact kind of thing about echinacea is real echinacea, high potent echinacea, especially in a tablet form or a liquid form, is going to make your mouth tingle. It's going to make your mouth almost feel like you have Pop Rocks, like the candy, or it's going to have a fuzzy feeling. And that's how you can tell that you have a potent formula of echinacea, because echinacea is so widely recommended now. There's so many diluted forms of it and stuff, because some of these supplement manufacturers like Ricola, for example, the cough drops, Ricola, you know, these products, they need to be available to the general public. They can't have, you know, they're at the cash register when you're checking out at the grocery store. These supplement companies that are available to everyone willy-nilly like that, they can't run the liability of putting out a product that's going to be too strong, and the however many millions of Americans that have autoimmune disease that it's going to cause issues with them, you know. So you're going to find products like that to have a much more diluted form of the ingredients. But just a fun fact about true echinacea, it's going to make your mouth tingle. And back in the day, that's actually how echinacea was tested for potency. The supplement company's standard process, that's what they used in their marketing for years, was true echinacea will make your mouth tingle. And that was their marketing for that. So just a fun little fact about echinacea. But
There's a sorry,
go ahead.
just saying there's a couple of questions in the chat.
Go ahead.
And yeah, I mean, the question, since we're open the door discussing the autoimmune condition, what kind of immune support going to be good for people with autoimmune condition, if the daily immune is okay to use with the people with like a Hashimoto or multiple sclerosis. I mean, I think there's no single answer to that. And just like Kurt said, the daily immune, I mean, from my perspective, I think this is less likely to cause flare up for the autoimmune condition, and compare with like those purely immune stimulating, like echinacea, like spirulina, or you know, those type of immuno-stimulating agents, and this is less likely. But I think we never know, because for the autoimmune condition, you don't know where is the imbalance, is if it's a Th1 dominant or if it's Th2 dominant. And people are saying like a Hashimoto is 90% of Th1 dominant, but still there's like a small percentage of a population with autoimmune, they probably are Th2. And a lot of other autoimmune conditions are actually a mixed, could be Th1, could be Th2. So in that case, I think before you try it, you never know. But in this case, I think a daily immune is not very likely, but you have to try it. I still see there's a couple of ingredients there, like elderberry. I'm not so sure, and that sometimes is also considered as immune stimulating. And astragalus, sometimes it's I think this one more like a support a Th1. So it's more like a good for the Th2 dominant, not necessarily good for Th1 dominant. So I think we don't have like a simple answer here. And if I don't know if Christina or Cordy you agree, but I would say you just have to try. Or in some cases, if you don't comfortable, you're worried about the flare up, a possible flare up, you don't want to take the risk, and then we don't use this type of the herbal agent. You can go with a more safe immune support nutrients like vitamin D, like omega-3, like I don't know what else, the
Zinc, vitamin C,
yeah, that think about, yeah, those type of
quercetin.
thing. And
Yeah.
also probiotic, when you work on the gut, when you optimize the gut microbiome, you're gonna have a great impact on overall immunity. So
So the short answer is every client's going to be different. It depends on how sensitive they are to supplements in general, how comfortable they feel, what their labs look like. Do they really need some immune support, right? That they may be really tanked and they're feeling that. They're feeling sick all the time. They're having a hard time recovering. It's probably worth the challenge to see how can I do on this. But there's no guarantees with any supplements that they're going to work the same for every person.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing to take away from it. And that's where, as FDN practitioners, we're not creating a carbon copy protocol for every single person. There is that bio-individuality. There's that component that we're looking at for each individual person. We're making these recommendations on a case-by-case basis. And I've said it a million times, but supplements are 25% of dress. So if you're looking at immune system support as well, especially in more of acute situations, like there's cold and flu season, you have sick kids at home, you're a school teacher, you're a nurse or something like that, and you feel like you're coming down with something, there's a reason grandma's chicken soup is a magical thing, right? The bone broth, the
Sleep.
component of, what was that?
Sleep.
Yes, sleep. The R in dress. There's all of those components, for diet, for rest, and the rest of the dress protocol that's going to help with immune system support. So, you know, as I always say, when in doubt, leave it out in regards to supplements. If you're not entirely confident that this is going to be a safe and effective product, don't add it in, right? But what is safe and effective for almost everybody are fruits and vegetables, right? Eating healthy, lean proteins, bone broths, things like that. For most people, those are going to be very nourishing to the immune system, and you're not going to run the risk of giving somebody an autoimmune flare-up because they ate a healthy salad for lunch, right? Knock on wood in most cases.
Right.
But and so with this product that we're speaking of, we keep coming back to that whole immune modulation component. We've talked on so many of these supplement squad calls about Mega IgG 2000. Everybody now knows that's my favorite product, but we talk about that because of its SIgA modulating effect, right? It's going to be affecting the SIgA and the gut immune system. That's going to increase it or decrease it. But I want to keep on that whole modulation talk and talk about another biocidin product. It's not on the 90-day list, but because we do recommend biocidin, I want to bring it up. But biocidin has a product that is a throat spray, right? And it is a spray that you can spray in the throat. But how it works is a little different than the rest of the biocidin line, and it works by modulating the SIgA as well. And the reason I'm wanting to bring this up is because this is a product, and Jayona, Christina, I'd like for you to chime in a minute as well, but it's a product that I found to be effective for those with autoimmune. I work with a lot of clients that have autoimmune disease, and how it's working, it's not your typical throat spray. And when COVID started, way back when, nearly half a decade ago now, when COVID had started, I was using a Gaia throat spray that was Golden Seal, which is really good for viruses. It was Echinacea. really made your mouth tingle, tasted awful, right? But I was always using that grocery shopping, going to work, going to run errands and stuff. And I was just going through bottles all the time. It was a really stimulating, immune stimulating product, right? Knock on wood, I didn't get original COVID. And I feel like I contribute a lot of it to the golden seal, to those high potent ingredients in there. But because I do have autoimmune, it was causing me to have flare-ups of autoimmune, like an autoimmune storm. I was getting the joint pain, I was getting the flushing and stuff. But living in that era, I was just spraying away, dealing with the autoimmune flare-up. But then it really sent me down this rabbit hole of wanting to know more about how are these throat sprays working? Because after COVID was coming around, you were seeing all these throat sprays coming out, and all these different supplement companies were releasing them. And then it really got me researching, because I nerd out on all of this stuff, and I dissect it to death. And it got me researching of what makes these throat sprays different than one another. And it got me to the Biocidin throat spray, which I thought was just another one, but it's a immune modulating throat spray as well. And so how it works is it's working on that SIgA component. So when you're spraying the Biocidin throat spray, or see it as Biocidin TS in their product line, it's actually working on the mucosal barrier of the respiratory tract, of the throat, of the mouth, the entire oral cavity, and the nose. Thanks, Christina. The sinuses and all of those, and really activating that SIgA response there, so that, remember, SIgA isn't necessarily overactivating the immune system. It's having more precision and deciding who's the good guy and who's the bad guy that's coming through, so that your own immune system won't be overstimulated, but can do a more effective job at determining what's good, what's bad, right? That makes sense. Jayun or Christina, did you have any comments on anything we've talked about so far? Are there any questions in the chat we should go over?
There are some questions. So I'm gonna tell the throat spray for a moment. It's something I always have in the cabinet. It's something I use with my kids. Coming home with some kind of whatever it's going on around school. The throat spray is amazing. It helps with postnasal drip, which I think is like one of the worst. It's a bane of a cold, right? It's like that drip down the back of your throat. It's the worst. So the throat spray is amazing for helping to cut that out and really getting that mucosal lining healthy again, right? And getting rid of the bugs. We do have a question with regards to mega IgG and whether or not that is a good option for somebody with autoimmune issues. I figured we were going to be talking about that. It's on one of our favorites list. So I don't know if you want to go to that, and we'll answer it
Sure.
in conjunction with our talk of whatever we want to talk about.
Yep. Do you want me to start with that one?
Yeah, go ahead. That's your
Cool.
favorite.
It's my favorite. It's so funny how, as practitioners, we have favorite things like that, but it is one of my favorite products, and it's one of my favorite products because it's so well tolerated by most people. And I say by most people and well tolerated because while this, compared to say GI detox, is far less constipating, there are clients that can have constipation and stuff about it. But what is great about this one, and why I would prefer to use something like this for somebody that has autoimmune, is it's staying in the gut lining, in that gut lumen. It's not going to leak out, right? And so my joke is, even if you had Swiss cheese of a leaky gut and you had all these holes in it, it's not going to leak out. And it's because the bovine immunoglobulins are too big to fit through a leaky gut. So they're going to stay in that gut lumen, which is why this can be an effective binder as well, because it's going to bind to those biotoxins. Remember, it's not a physical binder, so it's not going to have charcoals or clays in it. It's not going to bind to heavy metals or anything like that. But if you think like pathogen die-off, molds, things like that, it will have a binding capacity to them. And because it can't leak out the gut, it's going to be carried through the gut lumen and eliminated when you go to the bathroom. But this product is derived from bovine serum, right? So colostrum is another immunoglobulin IgG product, but colostrum has dairy in it, right? So if you're actively avoiding dairy, if you have a sensitivity to dairy, there is a chance that taking colostrum is going to cause you some trouble. But taking bovine serum-derived means that those immunoglobulins have been extracted, so there is no dairy, there is no whey, there is no casein proteins left over. So unless you were avoiding animal products and you were vegan or uh you know well, I guess just vegan because you're a vegetarian, you would have dairy. But if you were vegan or plant-based and you were actively avoiding, animal products or dairy or something like that, that would really be the only contraindication for a product like this. But this one is going to have a major, so to get that binding capacity, this will have a much more binding capability than something like colostrum because the mega IgG immunoglobulins, to get that binding capacity, you need about 3 grams worth. And colostrum in a typical serving size is going to be about 1.5 grams. So that's about 50% of that binding capacity. Something like mega IgG is going to be closer to that 3 gram or more, which is going to increase the binding. So it's great for if you're having a die-off reaction, if you have a client that's more sensitive to die-off reaction or something like that. But as far as direct immune stimulation, you're not going to find it as much with this product as you would with, say, Echinacea or something, because you're not activating that systemic immune response. You're modulating, so you're increasing or decreasing that SIgA. You're not directly stimulating it. It is staying in the gut lumen, so it's not going to be circulating through. So it shouldn't have an impact on somebody by causing a flare up or anything like that. Christina or Jayun, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I like Mega IgG 2000, and I also feel we kind of have a better handle with that because just like a Kurt said, this stay in the gut, and if we see very low secretory IgA or very high on the GI map, and then that's kind of a clear indication we can use this product to support. Or sometimes if I see there's a lot of overgrowth of those gram-negative bacteria, and especially those LPS producer, we see that overgrowth on the GI map, and this product can also be very helpful because it can be used as a binder. This IgG, this immunoglobulin, they're really good at binding those toxins. So if you see the the H. pylori, or if you see high toxin from the C. diff, or you see candida or like other gram-negative LPS producer like Klebsiella, Pseudomonas, those stuff, if those are overgrowth, and that's also another good indication of using the Mega IgG 2000. And also I feel more comfortable using this one with even people has the immune imbalance. We don't know exactly where the imbalance is, but maybe they have autoimmune or they have like those Th2 dominant symptoms, like a lot of allergy, a lot sensitivity. I think this product probably is more, I feel is kind of safer than the other stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot safer because you're not directly stimulating, you're helping the body help itself, essentially. But it's a great product, and I feel like it's now become a joke of how much I love this product. Maybe I should buy stock in them.
Right? You should go be a speaker.
All right. And Jayun, I actually wanted to ask you a question about this because I know you are well versed when it comes to fillers and stuff and ingredients. And uh, what would be your take? And I get this question and I don't quite know how to answer it, but with the sunflower lecithin in there, what impact do you feel, or the common question that I get is, what if somebody is trying to avoid sunflowers or seeds or something like that? What would be your opinion on a filler like that, and how would you answer that question?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good question, and that's a tough question. I don't have a very
But
good answer on
okay,
that, and I probably won't worry about that too much. And yeah, it's like if you want to avoid the sunflower seeds, that's how much you actually have it in the supplements if they only use like tiny amount as a filler or any other purpose. I I probably don't worry too much, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a good answer on that. Sorry.
well, you make me feel better because I didn't have an answer, and I've gotten that from uh people in the past, and I don't quite know how to answer it. So thank you for not knowing
Yeah.
it too. So maybe it's something we shouldn't be focused too much on.
I would think the amount that would be in something like this would be so minimal that it wouldn't be impactful.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
my idea is it's listed as other ingredients because it's not an active ingredient.
Right?
Uh,
Yeah.
most of the, well, pretty much all of the companies that, we have on that 90-day sheet are partly on there because we trust the whole manufacturing process when it comes to fillers and stuff like that. And so you're not taking it as an active ingredient, and it is one component from the sunflower seed. That is how I look at it. So, all right, well, let's open the rest of the time that we have. Let's open the floor for people raising hands and asking questions if you'd like. Otherwise, we
Kurt,
can.
there are actually a few questions in the
Okay.
chat, and we didn't have the chance to answer all of them. There's like a one, let me see. Yeah, I guess this is related. This is a question from Holly. I guess it's related to the daily immune, pure encapsulation daily immune. Would you avoid using this one if somebody has a high secretory IgA?
Um, I personally wouldn't worry about avoiding it because remember that secretory IgA isn't a picture of the entire immune system. It's a picture of that initial screening component of the immune system, right? So they're also, we have the bar bouncer analogy, but they're also kind of like the TSA agents when you go to the airport. They're the ones that's kind of scanning you and scanning your bags. It's just one part of that whole airport, you know, component. And so I wouldn't worry about it if somebody had high secretory IgA, because what that means is, while yes, the immune system might be in overdrive, the immune system might be in an overactive state. Remember, with that bar analogy, we don't know what's going on inside the bar. We don't know if it's overly busy because there's so many pathogens it's dealing with, or if it's been overstimulated or not. Jayu, Christina, do you have any further elaboration on that?
No.
I don't think so. Yeah. Another question is, how long is it safe to take Mega IgG 2000? Did I miss one before that, Jayun? I think you might have answered it already in the chat, but um, I basically I don't think you should be taking any supplement indefinitely. So we'll start with that. Most of the time you're using it in like a 4 to 12 week time frame for something that you're trying to actively work on, and then you'd want to retest and see where someone lands. If you're going to take it for more than 3 months, you should be assessing, do I feel like my immune system is improving? The symptomology that I'm working on correcting, do I feel better? If you're not feeling better, then it's time to reassess and see what else is going on that might be being missed, because you shouldn't need to take it as a daily supplement, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got a purpose, and there's an end to the purpose.
Yep. I agree 100%. It's not unsafe to take it for an extended period of time. You can take it for, I mean, I've had clients on it for a year, but to Christina's point, if you're not seeing improvement, there's something else that's an overlooked hidden healing opportunity that you need to uncover. So remember that metabolic chaos scorecard is a very effective way to see how is that immune number moving. Is that immune number going to be improving? And then maybe we do need to stay on it a little bit longer. But if that immune number is barely budging, then like Christina was saying, there's something else that we need to uncover, and you need to look for more healing opportunities. And this goes back to like the lab testings that we offer. We have the foundational labs, and I hear this all the time in study hour, and even in the graduate groups of wanting to learn more about oat testing, wanting to do Dutch testing, wanting to do all these other tests that all the cool kids are running these days. And, the thing about it is I like to save those for further down the line. So I do the foundational labs. I like to save those for further down the line, 3 months, 6 months down the road, when, like Christina was saying, we need to find more healing opportunities. Then we need to start digging deeper to figure out, running an organic acids test. Is there mold that's causing an issue or something like that? But don't underestimate the value of that metabolic chaos scorecard, because even if you see that number improving 4 points, 5 points, and what could seem like a minuscule amount could be a tremendous amount inside the body of improvement, and those hidden stressors being taken away.
Another question from Yan, and she is asking if we have like a dictionary type of a reference. So I sent a link to the natural medicine database, and after we graduated from FDN, if we join the FDNP, if you're the member of FDNP, you get the access to the natural medicine database for free, and that's a great resource.
Yeah, natural medicines database. I love that as much as Mega IgG. That's how much the natural medicines database is really powerful. And for those of you that haven't heard of it, like Cheyenne was saying, if you join AFDNP, it's reason number 596 to join. You do get a membership to that database, but it's almost like drugs.com, which is where you're going to look at these supplement or drug interactions. Imagine that with a functional mindset, a functional lens, where you can actually look at supplement interactions with pharmaceuticals, supplements with other supplements. You can also see what nutrient deficiencies pharmaceuticals or supplements may bring with them. So then, if you have a client that you can't figure out why they have a B12 deficiency, but then you found out the prescriptions they're taking cause that, or the combination of the supplements and medication is contributing to that. So it can really be an added tool to your toolbox to really figure out more of how supplements are interacting, how what kind of effect they could have. And then if you do like to nerd out on the whole clinical like medical journal component, it also gives you resources to say, we found this to be the case with a study that was done on 1,000 people, or this was a peer-reviewed journal on 50,000 people, so you get to see the science behind it, not just these supplements don't work well together. You actually get to learn why. And because your time in FDN as a trainee is very limited in the grand scheme of your entire career in this, there's only so much we can go over in regards to supplements. Supplements are going to be one of those components that you do start to learn with experience. You do start to learn by diving into the resources and the toolbox that you have to start figuring out more about the ingredients, the formulas, the brands, and things like that. Any more questions?
There are more questions in the chat. So Tamara is asking if you have like a high salivary secretory IgA, would the biocidin, the throat spray, gonna be helpful?
And that's what we were talking about it being a modulator. It can increase or decrease something based off what the body needs. So because it has that modulating effect, it would be helpful because it could calm it down to where it has better decision-making skills. And I say decision-making as in figuring out who's good and who's bad.
Another question from Gina, and this is not necessarily related to immune, but she's asking, are there major difference between the berberine HCl and this dihydroberberine? What's the maximum length of time for taking berberine? I I mean, the only thing I know that the difference between these two, they're saying the dihydroberberine is better, has a better bioavailability, is better absorbed by the body. But I don't have a lot of information on that. I think in most of the supplements, we still see berberine HCl more frequently. I don't have a lot of information on the dihydroberberine. But regarding the maximum length, also that's actually my question as well, because I know a lot of people use the berberine for the blood sugar control, but I'm not just so sure how much impact that going to have on the gut microbiome. So I don't have a direct answer on that, but that's actually a concern I have. And I don't know, Kurt and Christina, if you have any insights on that.
Yeah, I'm glad you stepped in for that one because I didn't know how to answer the berberine question.
Yeah, I just know that the dehydro is a little bit more available. You don't have to take as high of a dosage to usually get the same benefits as you get from berberine HCl, but I also don't think it's as commonly found in most products. Most products are going to stick with that traditional berberine, at least right now.
See, that's why as the supplement squad, we make such a great team because we don't know everything, but when we put our heads together, we can get these questions answered. Great questions, everyone. Any more questions?
Another question from Jackie. For how long would you recommend taking CoQ10 and vitamin C max for? So maximum, how long we would recommend to take a CoQ10 and vitamin C? I think this is still like really bio individual, and the say if someone is taking the Lipitor, and we know that gonna kind of inhibit the body's capability to produce CoQ10. So in that case, I probably will keep the client on the CoQ10 for long term, because your body doesn't have the capability to produce that, and that is very important antioxidant for your mitochondria. So in that case, I probably will take it for long term. And I think in these two, I mean, CoQ10, vitamin C, I'm not aware of any contradiction of taking that for long term.
The only thing that I could think of is bio-individuality is the big takeaway, right? And we keep saying that with everything with these supplements. You know, the vitamin C, if you were taking it in a high dose, you're going to see a more short-term impact, especially if you're seeing loose stools from it, right? If you're seeing loose stools because you're taking high dose, you don't want loose stools every day, right? That's going to be inconvenience for our clients. But something like CoQ10, as well as something like fish oil, for example, those are going to be more of a cumulative effect. They're going to take time to really start working. You're not going to have any benefit from CoQ10 because you took it for 4 or 5 days, right? You're going to want to take that for a continuous, lengthier amount of time. Vitamin C, you might relieve constipation in 2 days of taking it and 1 day of taking it, right? So to answer that question, bio-individuality is the big takeaway, but the other is one could create more of an acute response or short-term response. The other, could take a while, right? You could use fish oil to help effectively lower blood pressure by indirectly taking out inflammation of the arterial walls, but that's going to take 6 or 8 months before that happens. It's not going to be, a 30-day bottle that's going to find it. So I think it also comes down to what the product is that you're taking, what the intended purpose is for taking it can help determine that.
There's a question about the mushroom drinks. Do we want to recommend that for autoimmune clients?
If you're talking about mushroom drinks, my mind goes to like mushroom coffees and things like that. I think it comes down to there's a risk to benefit with it, and Cheyenne, Christina chime in as well. But for me, I get really bad heart palpitations if I drink coffee. I love coffee. I love black coffee, but I'm forced to have decaf coffee in the mornings if I'm going to have coffee. Well, where's the fun in that, right? I'm just doing it for the flavor at that point and not for the energy. But mushroom coffee, also if I drink coffee for a few days, I get gastritis really bad and it irritates my stomach lining. So, and mushroom drinks, the mushroom coffee has been great solutions for me and my clients because you don't get the gastritis. You do get a little bit of an energy boost with it. You do get an immune component to it or immune boosting component. I don't know of it being too stimulatory for autoimmune. Cheyenne, Christina, do you have any insight on that?
It's usually a healing. Mushrooms are pretty healing. It's usually recommended for a lot of health benefits. It's usually recommended quite often for women as well. So I haven't heard any counter challenges. I suppose there's always the one in the crowd, right?
Yeah.
That's always going to be one. But generally speaking, it's a benefit. You get to have coffee. It's certainly not the same as black coffee. However, it's, we can make it work, and it has got healing benefits to it. So it can be beneficial.
And there are some better than others. On a side note about that, it tastes to me like you put potting soil in hot water. And then there's ones like Everyday Dose, which I found is a really good mushroom coffee alternative because it does put a tiny bit of coffee in there. There is some caffeine in it as well, not enough to make me feel like I'm having a heart attack, but enough to give you that sustained energy because of the mushrooms. But they also add collagen in with Everyday Dose, so it helps prevent that, kind of mitigate that gastritis that regular coffee would give me. So I can have my cake and eat it too, or in this case, mushrooms.
But I think there's like a good point. So from Parker, so she's saying if the mushroom gonna be okay for people with candida overgrowth or mold toxicity, I think I mean that's my opinion, but basically in that case, I probably would want to avoid for a period of time, if you are doing this candida overgrowth, candida protocol, or you're trying to address the mold toxicity, I probably want to avoid that. I mean, what do you think, Kurt and Christina?
There's a lot of debate when it comes to mold toxicity and stuff like that. And what I found is a lot of this, because it is such a hot topic, a lot of these manufacturers are taking that added process to, or making that added disclaimer to their products that they're making to say that they've been tested for mold and things like that. So I would check with the manufacturer, check what kind of claims that they're making, what kind of labeling that they have. But it's going to be a risk of exposure to mold, especially if you're significantly or trying to detox a significant amount of mold.
Another question from Kira, and I guess we will come to that question probably better, next time. And she's asking how we decide between the different probiotic on the 90-day protocol. So next time we will talk about digestion, and we can have because that could be a long discussion. So if you're
All right, looks like they cut me abruptly there. Oh no! How embarrassing. I forgot to turn my lights back on. Now you guys can definitely tell my background's virtual. If you were on in the beginning, we were joking about that, but I just blew my cover completely. There we go. Got to reset. All right. So that was our supplement squad. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed that. There was a lot of activity in the chat. Want to make sure I get to all of this here. So another thing to note really quick, if you did tune on a little bit late, or tune in a little bit late rather, is we will be on this exact same stream per the little ticker below. We will be on this exact same stream for Bria Gad. I'm going to get to some questions right now. If it takes enough time, then we'll just transition right in. If we don't have enough questions, then what I will do is just do a little intermission. It'll be very clear for you guys, and then we'll hop back on with Bria when she is here. So hopefully we have enough of a conversation. And let me know, please, in the chat. I'm never looking for just hype up for the sake of being hyped up. I actually want to know, because this helps us for future events. Did you guys find this useful today? Some comments already indicated that to me, but there's a lot more on than there are comments. So if you guys could let me know, was this useful today? Did this give you a new perspective? Because this helps us decide what to show in future events. So I'd really appreciate it. Okay, let's go with the question, the first one that came in that I promised to answer at the end. So thank you for your patience, Haley. Awesome question here, something I'm very passionate about. Here we go. All right. Wow, I'm like completely blocking myself at this point with how much I have going on. I think I'm going to have to turn that ticker off. So give me 1 second here. Can't even see me anymore. There we go. A little bit better, I guess. All right. I'm late to the stream, but I have a question about supplements and acne. How do you know if a supplement might cause acne? Okay. So I have not said this, I don't think, this week at all. So for those of you just meeting me for the first time, you wouldn't even know this. But I did have 7 different diagnosed health conditions at the age of 18. I never normally share exactly what they are. It's not a secret. I just don't list them all off. So let me see if I can get them all offhand. I'll start with the physical stuff. Cystic acne, severe cystic acne, like probably one of the worst cases you've seen in person. Chronic sinusitis, GERD, Meniere's disease, which, by the way, I was told was incurable. I don't have the symptoms anymore. So I'm either in the longest remission that's ever existed, or I don't know. What do I know? I'm not a doctor. And then 3 mental health conditions: generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and major depressive disorder. So that's all the stuff I had going on, but one of them was severe cystic acne. So I feel like I'm a great person to ask this to. How would I know if a supplement is going to cause acne? Okay, good question. So let's go a step further. How would I know if anything's going to cause acne? What's the cause of acne to begin with? Well, if that was so easy, then everyone wouldn't have acne that has it. So this is multifactorial. And I'm someone who has spent an embarrassing amount of time studying acne just for this exact reason. So I don't know that I believe fully in like the different types of acne per se. Some people will say fungal, hormonal. I'm not even saying that that doesn't exist. I just don't look at it that way, because I think if someone is sick enough that they have fungal acne, then there's definitely issues with hormones. I think if they have issues with hormones so severe that they have cysts all over their face, well, their gut's probably not doing great, even if it's not just a fungi issue. So again, how would we know which supplement is going to cause acne? Well, if we change the lens that we look at acne through, so if we stop looking at it as a skin issue and look at it as an issue of possibly detoxification, hormonal issues, bacterial issues. So again, I'm not saying bacterial acne, hormonal acne, but if we look at those things as contributing factors to what might cause acne, then we can take that a step further and say, all right, well, if this supplement affects XYZ thing, then it might be subject to making my acne worse. So let me give you a direct answer and give you some really common ones. If I have someone in front of me, and this was definitely true for me, if I have someone in front of me that has severe acne and I haven't done a gut test with them, I could pretty much guarantee that their gut's going to be a mess. There's really no secret there. So let's say I gave them a supplement like Biocidin. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. Biocidin, it's by Biobotanicals. Well, actually, I forget which way it went. I think Cellcore just bought out Biocidin, so I guess that's under Cellcore now if they're still labeling it that way. So Biocidin, great supplement for killing off pathogens, and it can actually affect fungi as well, and even parasites. So really kind of broad spectrum, but it's killing stuff off. So that could be something that would be subject to making one's acne worse. Why? All the ingredients in Biocidin are great. Why would that make acne worse? Because what I might be doing is increasing that toxic load temporarily, and then it has to go somewhere. So people forget our largest primary detoxification organ is going to be our liver. But our largest detoxification organ in general is our skin. Now, this is a loose way of wording it, right? This is not something I'm going to go to Harvard Medical School and start preaching in this exact way, but this is a good way to think about it from the functional perspective, in my opinion. It's been useful to me. If you look at that liver, as a primary detoxification organ. And then we think about the secondary ones as being mucous membranes, the skin. Well, then it would hold up that if our liver is backed up, so to speak, for lack of better words, then our body, to keep us safe so that we don't get poisoned, has to find ulterior routes for our toxins to get disposed of in. So that's why you see a lot of people. Notice how I said I had chronic sinusitis too. So I had chronic sinusitis at the same time I had cystic acne, and when one got better, the other got better. I'm not saying there was one root cause for that, but I am saying that my body was overloaded. And so since it's overloaded, it has to go somewhere. Now, based on your genetics, that might be eczema for some person, that might be acne for another person, that might be asthma for one person, it might be chronic sinusitis for another. So the genetics will play into this, because some people could be sick as can be and they'll never get cystic acne. Right? We all can think of someone that is like, how the heck are you even alive right now, man, with what you're eating, what you're doing? Their skin's perfect. So there is a genetic component to it, obviously. But that's going to be one thing. Anything that's going to temporarily increase that toxic load, Haley, by killing off things, whether it be bacteria, parasites, or fungi, that would be something I'd, in general, be a little bit concerned about in terms of its potential to increase acne. What else? Anything that's going to mess with hormones. So for a lot of people that have acne, this isn't always the case, but for a lot of people that have acne, they have overactive sebaceous glands, right? They produce more sebum in their or out of their sebaceous glands than the average person. That's why they get oily skin. So for me, I'm actually someone who is subject to this. I'm even still slightly subject to this. And it sucks because when those sebaceous glands are overactive for many years in your life, it kind of makes the pores significantly larger because the stuff has to go out through that. And as far as we know, unless you do certain cosmetic treatments, there's really not much you can do about that. So I'm not trying to embarrass myself here, but the reality is I have like super large pores on my nose still to this day. So anything that could influence hormones has at least a potential to make that acne worse. Okay, because if I'm going to start messing with that, that could increase the output of the sebaceous glands, which could mean that the bacteria can bind to the sebum that can lead to acne for some people. So that's going to be one thing. And this is a very broad one. I would say, somewhat ironically, almost anything that is going to help your body be more efficient could temporarily, excuse me, make you more prone to acne. Now, you're saying, why the heck would that makes me more prone to acne by having my body more efficient? Well, remember, if we're thinking about the skin as a detoxification organ, which it largely is, it's also protective. Then if my cells have been malnourished and all of a sudden I take a super high potency multivitamin and everything's like fire and now I'm doing great, or I've been low on minerals and now I take a very high quality mineral supplement. Well, if the cells are working better, what are they going to do? They're going to push more stuff out faster. And there might be a temporary period where I have some excess acne as a result. Now, is there anything that we can do about this? Are there supplements that are generally supportive of acne? So this is not medical advice. I'm not telling you guys to take these things, but I would encourage you to at least look into them. So this topic came up today, Mega IgG 2000. The brand name for those immunoglobulins, it's under Microbiome Lab. Someone said that they hadn't even heard about that before. Super glad that you got to. That's a great supplement. So those immunoglobulins are going to bind to toxins. They're going to bind to things that are causing your body issues. And what's great about immunoglobulins is they don't adsorb like a charcoal would. They do not adsorb, AD, not AB, adsorb. So AB, absorb, is a chemical reaction, right? That's like you throw salt into water and all of a sudden you don't have the same salt anymore, right? It goes into the water. So that's absorbing. Adsorbing means that these things don't necessarily discriminate. It's not necessarily mixing in. It's just going to take in everything. So that's why charcoal is such a powerful thing in filters. Charcoal can be used even to this day in certain cases of alcohol poisoning because it doesn't care. It doesn't discriminate. It will bind everything to it. So that's great for cleaning up some toxins, but also if you took medications, if you took supplements, it can bind to nutrients. If you do that long term, it could lead to nutrient deficiencies. So that's kind of an issue there. But you have something like the immunoglobulins, that's going to be great for cleaning up the bad stuff while also sparing some of the good stuff. Whereas like the second category here would be a charcoal, would be a zeolite clay. My gosh, there's another one off the top of my head I'm not thinking of. Sorry. Anything in like GI detox, also by biobotanicals by coincidence. That is great. GI detox is definitely going to help maybe clear some stuff up temporarily, but we still have not gotten to the root of what's going on. So, full transparency, again, not medical advice, just a little Ev tip. When I was towards the end of my acne journey, so what I mean by that is I don't, thank God, have these huge cystic pimples anymore, but maybe I was getting a little breakout here or there. If I knew that I had, a party or an event or something that really mattered to me, I had to get photos and I just wanted to look good, man. I just wanted to feel good in my own skin. We all want that, right? I would start supplementing before bed or first thing in the morning. You just have to take it away from other things. I would start supplementing with activated charcoal with GI detox so that I would get a little bit of a break, or my system would get a little bit of a break for that week. This is an anecdote, but I found that did lead to a decrease in breakouts at that time. What else could help? So things that could support the liver. This was another little anecdote that I picked up along my acne journey. And again, this was when I was at the end of it. So I'm just getting some whiteheads, just getting some small stuff. I do not know that this would have even been noticeable in terms of its effectiveness if I had done this when I was at my worst and had severe cystic acne. Milk thistle, liver detox supplements. So there is one that I liked by Thorne. I think it's actually just called Liver Detox or Liver Detox Plus or something. That worked very well for helping me out with the last bit of whiteheads or whatever. And I'm doing something a bit more sustainable. Whereas like the charcoal and the zeolite clays and all that kind of stuff, that might be something that we don't know if you want to take that long term. That's not really been studied. But something like a milk thistle is probably a little bit safer long term and helping the body kind of move itself along. So very long-winded answer, but again, it's either that or an intermission. And I wanted to make sure I gave you everything that I possibly could, Haley. So I'm sorry that some of that is not immediately useful either, because it's like, well, what's causing my specific acne? I don't know. I'd have to look at testing to see that. But anything that's going to kill off stuff, that's going to be one you're going to want to watch out for. Um, Anything that's all of a sudden going to give your cells a bunch of extra nutrients if you've been depleted, I'm not saying that's a bad thing overall, but you do need to understand that there might be a temporary time where this waste is getting pushed out and it's leading to increased acne in the skin. Anything that's going to mess with hormones. Not that I'm considering what I'm about to say a supplement, but hormone replacement therapy, very common nowadays, for better or for worse. You start playing with that, I mean, good luck. If you're playing with DHEA, I mean, good luck. That all could contribute to this type of stuff. Oh, good. I'm glad you thought it was insightful. Then, if I may, I'll give you my last thing here. It's going to be very short because no one thinks about this. So, right now, I'm under artificial lights. I have to do that for my job. I don't even mind doing that for my job. But I also know that I need to get the proper light most of the time. And I don't do 20 events in a week typically. That's not the norm for me at FDN. It happens often enough, but it's not the norm. So, one thing that we know, and this is crazy, this is useful for everyone. This is not just acne right now. When you are under artificial blue lights like this, right, and it's hitting you, we know that it actually increases blood glucose. Why? Well, one of the reasons that we believe it increases blood glucose is because it raises cortisol. So this actually tells your body, hey, it's like middle of the day, man, we need to go, 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 but it never stops. The flicker can also affect this. So your cortisol raises, blood glucose raises, okay? That's where and we actually know as a result, it can lead to increased sebum production. So if you're an acne sufferer, you might have noticed what I noticed. I noticed when I was outside all day, I didn't seem to get as oily a skin, which is crazy because you're told when you're younger, well, outside, that's all dirty. You're in the sun, you should be sweating more. I never found that I really had particularly oily skin if I was outside all day. I'm not saying it didn't happen at all. And certainly if I sweat, it becomes oily. But if I was just kind of doing my normal thing, I noticed it wasn't as bad versus I go into a highly artificially lit environment within a couple of hours, especially at school. It was so embarrassing. My skin was so oily. Now that I'm older and I understand this stuff, I get it. What was I doing before school? I was eating a bagel with cream. I just woke up. I'd done no physical activity whatsoever. I'm eating a bagel with cream cheese. There's 70 carbs, spiking the blood glucose. I'm drinking down orange juice, another 40 grams of carbohydrates. So I'm at 110, 120 grams of carbs, spiking the heck out of the blood sugar. I'm barely woken up. And then I go sit under artificial lights and just, arms crossed, sedentary. And no wonder the skin was so oily. And you add to that teenage hormones, it's a recipe for disaster. So, hope you guys enjoyed that and got something from it. Let's go to some next questions here. I'm going to go back up. Excuse me for 1 second. All right, and Bria should be with us in just a moment, which is great. I did great killing some time. And I didn't lose any numbers. You guys are still on, so you must have enjoyed it to some degree, or you're just being very polite. This was just a good note here. I think it's worth saying. For those with MCAS, excipients can cause flares even in trace amounts. I mentioned this to consider this for those clients. Yes. And I had mentioned afterwards, we're really lucky. We have an active mentor in the course, Nicole Doobie, and she had dealt with MCAS. I don't consider that part lucky, obviously, but it is cool to have her because she was down to like 5 foods at one point. So she understands fully what it's like to be very restrictive on supplements, very restrictive on foods, and kind of how to work someone through that. But very good point here. Curated arts and vintage. All right, Holly had said, I was treating a Lyme co-infection and mold. IgG was a game changer. It worked as an excellent binder. Happy to see this discussed. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where, again, not medical advice, I'm speaking from what I know, doesn't seem to be something that's a huge problem long-term to take. Seems to add on quite nicely. Might be able to help a lot of us who have been sicker long-term, or we're on long-term stretches of antibiotics and our guts all beaten up and depleted. Seems to be very useful. Okay. Since FDN is not supplement company loyal, correct? How do you vet and select new supplements? What do you look for? Good question, OB. So what we're going to look for is a couple of things. One is, are there any studies behind this? So believe it or not, and you might know this, OB, I'm speaking generally, right? We have a large audience. Some supplement companies, guys, actually are studying their formulas. Biobotanicals, I keep mentioning them, but it's probably because they're so great. Biobotanical formulas, they study all this stuff. They've actually shown that biocidin with antibiotics helps people with Lyme more. It actually is more effective when it's used together. Amazing. The woman who owned that, I guess she doesn't own it anymore since Cellcore bought it out, but that was Rachel Fresno, I want to say, naturopathic physician, super into the science, and she actually looks at what's happening there. So that's great. Another thing that we can consider is, what is the science behind the dosage of the ingredient? No one owns, I'm making something up, vitamin A, for example, right? No one owns vitamin A, but there are studies showing what certain dosages of that vitamin are going to do. Which leads me to my second point of this answer here. You said, how do we vet them? Well, one thing we're going to make sure is that there's proper third-party testing whenever possible. And this is very scary. I'll never forget my friend Brian. He actually went through FDN. He's not like a full-out practitioner, but he did go through the program and graduate. One of my best friends since we were kids, probably 7th grade. And brilliant guy, man. I like hanging around people smarter than me, but I didn't set out to meet him. I just absolutely brilliant dude. And he's a chemist. And when I first told, I always mess with my friends and my wife and stuff. I'm like a in real life troll, right? I'll leave a harmless prank for you and stuff. And I had told him that the FDA doesn't actually look at all the supplements and stuff. There's no like approval process. And he thought I was doing one of my trolls on him. He thought I was tricking him. He's like, dude, shut up. Like, the FDA looks at supplements. I'm like, no, dude, that's not how it works. There's a certain process where they're kind of involved, but it's nothing anywhere near what medications do. And in theory, you could get away with it for a while, kind of throwing random stuff into a supplement. And is that Bria in the background? Awesome. Hello, Bria. Welcome. We're just finishing up this session. They can't see you yet. Only I can see you. Can't hear you yet either, but we're going to bring you on right on the hour. So guys, make sure you stay tuned, because in 3-4 minutes, we will get started on our case study here. But anyway, my buddy Brian, he didn't believe me. He could not believe me that they didn't even look into this stuff. So do I want the FDA fully involved in supplements? I don't know. I'm speaking on behalf of Evan Transu. I don't know if that's a good thing one way or another. What would be important, though, I think we could all agree on this, is to test for purity, to test for safety, test to make sure there's not a bunch of heavy metals. So we're going to look for companies that are willing and do the third-party testing necessary to see what's going on for them. And for those that are new to this space, you're like, what's a third party? What? That means if I have a company and I'm manufacturing supplements, so my day-to-day is I'm working in the supplement company. The third party thing means that I can randomly get tested anytime per year. They're going to take, a batch of stuff, test it, and then that's going to look at the purity of the supplement, make sure that the ingredients that are in it are actually there, because that's another huge thing. So when I was mentioning the vitamin A, for example, and the scientific validity of vitamin A supplementation at certain dosages, well, that assumes that the dose that we're saying is actually in the supplement. This is, I hate to, I don't want to ever seem like a negative or anything. I'm just trying to open up your eyes to the way that the world works. Even medications, by the way, folks, have a certain margin of error. So that means if I say that, this is the first one that comes to head because this is where I read about it first. Alprazolam, for example, Xanax, alprazolam's the generic. So that can have a margin of error. Well, that's a pretty potent little guy there. So, depending on the margin of error that you're talking, you could get a slightly different effect to the user based on what brand that they got that day. So, just something to think about with both medications and supplements. If you feel like, I swear when I get it from this pharmacy, it works a little better, that just might be accurate, just might be true. We'll get one more question here while we can. Well, this is an awesome comment. Talisha, I cannot wait for you to be in the course. I really appreciate how nice you've been in our community. Like, you're the exact type of person we're looking for. If you did just tune in with us, welcome. We're ending another session. We're still going to be on this stream for Bria, our case study folk person, next. And she will be with us in just a moment. She's in the back room. All right, Talisha said this is a great example of the value of this program. As much as I've kept up in this wellness space, today is the first I am hearing of IgG 2000. Incredible. Yes. Awesome. We're trying to bring you guys the best of the best stuff. And quite frankly, a supplement like that used long term can be a pretty notable difference in someone's life, right? We know that it helps heal and seal the gut. We know that it helps bind some of the toxins that are found in today's world without the nutrient deficiencies. Kind of cool, man. Really nice, actually, especially if you go through FDN and you find someone had super low secretory IgA on their GI map. This is a very poor way to say it, and some medical professional would slap me probably for saying this way. But you can almost kind of uh, not replace, but you can kind of use some of those supplements to help out with that frontline immune defense temporarily while you help the person rebuild the body. So if they're getting sick all the time, catching colds every month, that can be a great way to help in the process of preventing that while you get them better. All right, real last question then. So a modulator is another name for an adaptogen, right? And then, Holly commented on this, and that was a great comment, Holly. So a modulator is actually a really broad term. It's a good question, but it is technically a broad term. This could refer to almost anything supplement-wise that is going to change something in your biology, something in a chemical process. So you can imagine how many things that could lead to. You could argue that vitamins are modulators. You could argue that many adaptogens are modulators. Absolutely. And then you're going to have your little subcategories with immunomodulation and things like that. So, good question. It's a very broad term. I think Kurt, if I remember correctly, was using it for something specific, but the reality is that term is used very broadly. Who's ready for a case study? And Bria, I don't want you to think that they're not ready when you come in, but there's a 30 to 60 second delay on here, and we've already been streaming for an hour and change. So let us know who is ready to meet Bria and get this case study going. A lot of people said this was useful, which is great. Super excited. I use Cellcore biotoxin binder. Are you familiar with that? Yes, I certainly am familiar with it. And almost all of our FDNs love it. I can't think of anyone who doesn't love it. So very familiar with that. Let me end this chat here.